Welcome, and thank you for dialing into our webinar today, Unlocking the Power of Custom AI for Audience Targeting. My name is Mercedes Riofrio, and I am the Global Market Research Manager here at Seedtag, and I'll be your moderator today as we discuss why this new upgrade in our technology can work wonders for your brand. Before we go into our main session today, I would like to take a brief moment to introduce what we do here at Seedtag. Seedtag is an advertising technology company that offers entirely cookieless solution for brands' advertising purposes, and we can do this through contextual targeting strategies that are entirely respectful of consumers' privacy and are enabled by top-notch artificial intelligence and machine learning technologies. Our aim here at Seedtag is to power the most relevant and engaging communications in a privacy-first world. To set the ground today and tell you a little bit about what we'll be discussing here today is we'll be briefly discussing on the recent challenges that the advertising world is facing now that we are fastly approaching into that cookieless world that has been widely talked about. We will discuss about what led to this new development in our technology, and we'll go through the benefits and the overarching results of our research carried out with MetrixLab to prove its capabilities on improving brands' KPIs when used. And now I would like to go to the introduction of who's joining me here today. We are joined by Pablo, who's the group manager here at Seedtag, and also by Rick Candelaria, Senior Vice President of Consulting and Brand Engagement at MetrixLab, who was our external research partner carrying out the research for custom AI and proving its capabilities. And before we deep dive into the deep dive of our technology and the findings of this research, I would leave the floor to Rick. Feel free to introduce yourself and what you do at MetrixLab.
Of course. Hello, everyone. My name is Rick Candelaria. I sit in the innovation group at MetrixLab, and there I partner with some of our largest global clients involved in making sure that we as a company are at the forefront when it comes to research innovations. So how about you, Pablo?
Thank you, Rick. And thank you, Mercedes. So I work at Seedtag. I've been at Seedtag for a couple of years and a half already, worked at the product team, mainly focusing the last couple of years in developing Leads, which is our AI platform. And of course, custom AI is very, very related to Leads and all the contextual capabilities and AI capabilities that we've developing over the last couple of years that we will be talking about today.
Amazing, Pablo. I have actually been able to see firsthand what the product team does at constantly working towards developments that can ultimately enhance the Seedtag solutions and what we can provide for clients. And oftentimes making sense in this world where third-party cookies are going to be dismissed. It's normally a challenge. Clients are very worried about how they are going to tailor their campaigns in a very close future. And as general housekeeping, I want Pablo, you to briefly discuss where these challenges are coming from in the industry.
Sure, of course. I mean, they're the usual suspects, right? I mean, we've been talking about this for over a couple of years now, increased regulatory measures, CCPA, GDPR, but also, other states in the US following other countries in Latin, such as Brazil following. We've seen that the usage of cookies, which is the way we're more comfortable with, or we have been more comfortable with in the past 10 years doing digital advertising, where these regulatory measures, they're limiting the way we are used to do digital advertising today. And of course, this come because of what we see on the screen right now, right? Over 83% of consumers are said to be concerned about their privacy online. Regulatory measures follow, of course, what the society demands, and we're seeing an increased of the concern of privacy, of online privacy, especially in users, as they feel more targeted and follow across the web. And this, of course, creates a challenge in how we were used to doing things. And we need to find new ways, of course, of continuing doing good targeting, good advertising campaigns in the digital world that will allow, on the one side, advertisers and agencies to transmit their messages out there. And on the other hand, it will allow also consumers of the internet continue to have a free internet with quality internet powered by ads that respect their privacy online, and that of course are relevant to them as they navigate around the web. And yeah, they will find these ads improve how they navigate to the web.
Very interesting points that you make there, Pablo, because it's often the times that as a contextual vendor, clients come to us very worried about how are they going to tailor their campaigns to client-specific interests or demographics without the use of personal data, and how are they going to still succeed at making these strong connections with them. So I don't know if, Pablo, you can briefly discuss about the capabilities of Seedtag, how we started doing this through contextual advertising, and how we have kept on developing over the years.
Yeah, sure, of course. So let me go to the next slide. And here it's very straightforward. Contextual has been around for forever. I would say it's the first way we're used to doing advertising in offline advertising. And then as we started to do this in the digital world, of course, the capabilities have been evolving over the last 10 years, right? So the first thing that we were capable of doing is targeting, specific domains or specific publishers, right? Where we would thought that our audience would be navigating around these publishers. As our technologies improved, we're able also to target specific keywords for, whitelisting and blacklisting, but we all know that that is not the best approach, as the same keyword would have very different meanings depending on the ecosystem that is used. Shooting a football to score in the match is not the same as shooting a bullet or something like this. Classic example, but it really brings to the forefront the limitations of the technology at this point. Then, of course, this is evolved into the page level text analysis. We start to include AI models that allow us to understand the sentiment of the web page, that allow us to understand whether that specific article would be positive for the brand, that would be suitable for the needs of the brand, and of course the topics that are mentioned with much more in depth that we used to have with the keywords. We still continue to develop our capabilities. One of the things that bring more information when you navigate the internet is the images that you see. So of course we incorporate to the text analysis, computer vision capabilities to understand the images and what those images would transmit to the audiences that are navigating through those articles. And last but not least, probably the most relevant development in the last couple of years have been the full network analysis, right? And here's where we go, I would say, to a higher level of abstraction. And what I mean by that is that we take the full page analysis, all the information that we create through the AI models release of each and every article in the network, and we place all those together in a network. What this allows us to do is that it will allow us to understand everything that is written in a specific country, for instance, or in a specific language, or in a specific topic. We could visualize that. We could see everything that's written, but also everything that's read and how many times everything is read, right? So still, we will be always respecting the user's privacy, but we will see trends of, the latest topics that are bringing most interest. Or we could detect, new topics being generated and bringing a lot of interest. And with that, fuel the strategies, fuel the planning of our agencies, fuel the planning of our advertisers, right? And improve, hence, the targeting, the campaigns that we do with the contextual technologies that we have as of today, right? And it's this network level analysis, as I was explaining it, that we will see is the base for custom AI, which is the next thing that we will explain today, right? So just to give you a little bit of overview, here we have, the results of a full page level analysis. We see of course, here where I decided to take the last Formula One example that I saw the last weekend. So here we see as I was saying, sorry for that. Yeah, the Formula One for Saudi Arabia, we see the category sports, subcategory motorsports, positive brand safetiness. Then we see, of course, in the image, we see that Checo Perez, for instance, some relevant keywords entities, and the related articles some of the related articles that we've seen that are placed in the network level analysis. And this is what I was saying, right? We're capable of identifying and visualizing all the articles in the network into one and only network, right? And as I was saying, this visualization and the tools that we have developed around this network allow us to gather more specific information, what's trendy around Formula One, or around Checo Perez, or around the Saudi Arabia Grand Prix, right?
Thank you for that, Pablo. I really love the chart you just showed on the development and everything that Seedtag has gone through over the years and the capabilities of our AI to date. I wonder now how we can use these technologies to target now brand-specific audiences when a client comes with a briefing that is very complex and very tailored to an audience without using any personal data.
Yeah, this makes sense, right? And that's the exact question that we wanted to solve with custom AI, right? And here, let me go to the next slide. That was the exact objective that we had in mind. We have improved our AI capabilities in the last 8 years massively, right? We are now able to visualize a network and understand what's out there, what's bringing interest, and so on and so forth. So we wanted to go one step further and being able to create tailored segments for our clients directly from their briefings, right? So something that is very automatized release, that is very quick, and that will give us also insights on what's out there to make sure that we can use all this technology to create custom segments for our advertisers and for our agencies based on the definition of their audience, right? To create, as I was saying, campaigns fully tailored to our clients' target audience. So this is custom AI, right? So a little bit, a general overview would be the following, right? The idea of this custom AI is that we wanted it to be super simple, super easy to use, and flexible, right? So with this in mind, what we said is, okay, we know that advertisers, agencies, they spend millions of dollars in understanding their users, understanding their consumers, what drives, what drives their consumers, what are their interests, what drives and motivates them to purchase or do the purchasing or the choices that they do in life, right? They really know their audiences very, very well through the research that they do and the intel they gather from them, right? So the idea is that with this definition, with this interest that could range, for instance, I'm making up an example, right? So for instance, it could come for a retail advertiser that one of their audience very concerned with plastic pollution, right, or similar. Their definition or the definition of the audience could go around the words of I'm very concerned about plastic pollution and how that could damage the ocean's ecosystem and ultimately how that can affect my health, right? That would be a definition of an interest or the definition of an audience that could come directly from an advertiser. What we wanted to do is we take that, we put that into Leads, and we create a unique segment to target the people that are behind those interests, to target the articles that are most relevant and that would be talking about that specific and solving those specific concerns, right? The cool thing about it is that it's very quick, as we will see later, and it allows us to quantify the traffic that we have within that specific segment. And also it allows us to visualize what will be within those specific segments to make sure that we are where we want to be, right? And further from that, which I think it's even cooler, is that it's very flexible, right? So we wanted it to be as flexible as possible for the needs of our advertisers. So we defined this affinity index that allows us to, and we would see, make it the segment bigger. So we have more reach if we wanted to capitalize on more part of the network, or we can make it a bit smaller to make sure that, we are only covering the most specific and most relevant parts for those concerns or for those interests that drives their audiences, right? So this is in a nutshell how it works, I would say.
Thank you for that explanation, Pablo. I think like by my experience of talking to clients, it's often that AI technologies are very complex to come through and to explain. And as you explained, this new technology development is really seems as very flexible, easy to implement, no additional work needed on either the client side or a lot of heavy lifting needed on our side if we wanted to implement it. I don't know if you can explain it in like 4 simple steps or put it into more concrete terms for our audience here today.
Yeah. Of course, I have a slide for that, but let's forget about the slide and I will try to explain as best as possible. Okay, so the idea is that how this network works is pretty easy, right? At the end of the day, what will happen is when any article comes, Liz will analyze it and will place it somewhere in the network. So let's imagine like a map, as we have the Earth maps, in anywhere as a Google Maps, right? We will put it in a map, and the position that the article will take will depend on the topics covered by that article, right? So Liz will position that article geographically speaking, right? Digitally, but geographically speaking, so to say, in a spot that will depend solely on the topics covered by that article, right? And the idea is that on the network, all the articles that talk about the same things are placed together. So all the articles that talk about the same interest or that will be covering the same concerns for the different audiences will be in the same geographic areas, right? So once we have that idea, the only thing that we have to do is place the briefing, place the interest into the same network, right? And then we will know that around that specific topic, that's where we will have all the most relevant articles to cover that specific segment, right? And then the only thing we do once we have, so let's imagine, right, the full network with all the clusters for the different topics, we place the briefing and then we draw a circle around it, more or less, of course. This is a bit more complicated in real life, but we place a circle around it and then we make the circle bigger if we put the affinity score lower, or smaller to have a more affine segment if we increase the affinity score. And that's what allows us to be flexible when creating these specific segments.
I think very well explained, but I would love for you to go through a specific client briefing and explain this, how it will play out if we were taking a real client briefing.
Is there an example?
Yeah, an example.
Okay, so let's use this one. Okay, so here, as I was saying, the briefing could come in these terms, I would say. So in this case, we're talking about washing machines. So in this case, let me read the briefing out loud. They, as the client's interest, as the client audience, sorry, are interested in both active and cold wash, best cleaners, washing machines, and laundry, right? So how would the different technologies allow us to target this? The first thing that we could do is use IIB categories, right? So this is a very good approach that allows us to have very relevant, but still very big reach, right? The downside from the IIB categories is that we will see very relevant. So in this case, we have selected home and garden, family and parenting, for instance, that would probably the most relevant for this specific briefing, right? The good thing about IIB categories that will, of course, have very relevant articles within these categories. So for instance, we see here a title of one of the articles talking about, cleaning fanatics obsessed with 1 pound hack. They get amazing smelling clothes and it keeps your washing machine spotless too. But on the other hand, the downside of this is that we, of course, would have not so relevant articles. So in this case, teacher says exact time kids should go to bed on school nights, depending on age, right? This is something similar that could happen when using keywords, right? So in this case, we have crossed the IIB categories with some specific keywords. In this case, we use the keyword washer. And here what we see is Aldi and Lidl, what's inside the middle aisle from Wednesday, March 22nd. And what we see is a machine to clean your, like a car share machine to wash your car, right? So not really so relevant. How we would go with custom AI. And the cool thing about it is that we would forget about the limits of the IIB categories. We would, of course, not be using keywords, but just an AI model that's tailored to the specific briefing. And that would create data space that we see in orange within the network. to find the most relevant articles, right? And the cool thing about this is that as we forget about the frontiers or about the limits of the IAB categories, we're capable of discovering new articles in other categories that could be relevant. So for instance, here in arts and entertainment, we see about, the cleaning hacks or how they contestants wash their clothes in Love Island. Or on the other hand, in pets and animals category, the 10 best expert hacks for cleaning your dog's and possessions, right? So it doesn't stop there. The cool thing about this, as I was mentioning before, is that we can play with the affinity score or the affinity index for it to be broader if we needed to have additional reach because we want it to be, capitalize a bigger part of the network, or we can be smaller if we want to have a very targeted approach, or if, for instance, our audience is defined by 3 or 4 different interests, and then we can create different segments for each of those interests, right? So one of the things I know, let me maybe show these live. Okay, so we have, of course, at Seedtag, we have developed product people, we always love to do these things, test things live when we shouldn't sometimes, but I want to do it. Okay, so what I'm going to do, I'm going to copy paste the briefing directly as you're seeing it live, I guess. This is LeaseOS, so this is basically our open door to Lease and to interact with Lease, right? So here what I can do is I will incorporate the briefing as we have just explained. I will select the country. So in this case, I can do the United Kingdom, for instance. Click on Analyze. And here, what we will be seeing, there you go. So this is the information that we get, right? Some number of articles and the millions of impressions forecasted. And here we can play with the score. So let me, of course, put the score a bit higher. On 84, for instance, that I think could be relevant, right? This recalculates the results for the specific segment, and then shows us some articles that would be falling within those segments, so how to clean a washing machine, can I use white vinegar to deodorize and brighten clothes, best washing pots, best Miele washing machines, how to clean your washing machine, and so on and so forth. So it also tells us the split between the categories, what would be more relevant. So in this case, of course, most of it comes in home and garden, and we would, of course, be able to just select the home and garden category if we want, right? I won't do it now, but once we're comfortable with the score that we have selected, with the categories that we have selected, right, that we have here, of course, some keywords that would represent the segment that we're talking about, we can just, create the audience, put it the name, test, and we can, select the dates for the campaign, create the audience, and that's it. That's basically it. We can do it live in a webinar, or of course, our teams can do it very, very quickly to generate very specific segments with a lot of information from the network, right? So just going back now to the presentation, sorry about hacking the presentation a little bit.
Pablo normally gets so excited about this. I really love that live showcase of how this works in real life, because that's exactly what we do with clients briefings and how we find the highest affinity articles to place your ads in. But now I want to leave the ground to Rick, because we talked a lot about, like Pablo was discussing about the affinity index and how this is, if we reduce the scope or enlarge the scope, we can find a broader reach or a smaller reach, depending on what affinity you want to find within your articles. But we didn't want this to stay at home. We didn't want it just to like grade our own homework and say like, this is higher affinity. So we wanted to test with an external vendor that could help us test how this higher affinity ultimately translates into better brand performance. So now I want to leave the ground to Rick for him to tell us a little bit about MetrixLab and the kind of work you do with digital ads.
Of course. Thanks, Mercedes. So for those who aren't familiar with MetrixLab, we're a global market research agency. We work with some of the largest advertisers in the world who come to us with creative development and media related research needs. And in any given year, we test thousands upon thousands of ads, a lot of those digital ads. And so based on that work and that experience, we know some of the challenges that advertisers face today. In particular, thinking about the challenge to get their ads to break through, in a very cluttered media environment. So understanding how ads can break through to consumers and be memorable, is something that we do all the time. In our pre-testing, we always test ads in context, so we understand the importance of context. And in addition to that, I think, one of the very frequent conversations that we have with clients when they want to test ads is around target audience. And sometimes we have situations where a campaign can be created and developed for a specific audience, but when it comes to the media deployment, maybe the media isn't actually deployed against that audience. So then you have situations where you're doing a pre-test where you're testing among one audience, but then in market, the campaign isn't always served to that audience. So it can create conflicts. So, if you think about the targeting segmentation that Pablo mentioned, I think the technology from Seedtag really has the potential to help campaigns in a few different ways. And we'll see that based on the research that we did.
It was really interesting to onboard MetrixLab on this particular piece of research, because they have been already working with Seedtag for 2 years now, and they have a deep understanding of what we can bring for clients in terms of that uplift in main brand KPIs, but also in creatives being more valued by users, highly liked, and ultimately finding those high engagement opportunities to connect in a very successful way with users. Now I want you, Rick, I don't know if we can bounce back to you. We often talk about Seedtag being our winning formula is combining in context placements with bespoke contextual creatives. And we have been able to test throughout the years that really sets up brands for success. But I'm curious about how you saw this affinity index play in terms of a higher perceived brand fit with the content, with this extraction, new extraction tool, and if you saw anything from users' perception in this sense.
Yeah. So one of the more interesting things that came out of the research was the fact that consumers, when they were exposed to content via custom AI, had a much stronger belief that the brand that was advertised fit with the content, and it was about 10% higher. So what that means is that people were feeling that the brand and the content had a much better connection with the custom AI categorizations.
Now, I'm curious about the methodology, and we'll give you the word in a second, because you mentioned that 10% uplift, and the 10% uplift is actually referring to when we compare the custom AI extracted articles versus those that were extracted with the standard IAB taxonomy. And this is where we saw the perceived better fit, which was super interesting. So I will go back to you now again, because I'm curious about how you developed that methodology to test this approach, and just curious for you to give us a little bit more details on how you tested this.
Yeah. So the goal of the research was really to evaluate how consumers responded to the ads served via custom AI, via, like as you mentioned, the standard IAB categorization. And in thinking about how to design it, there were several things that were going to be really important. So one was that the context in which the people, were exposed to had to mimic real life as best we could. Two, that the results should be reflective of performance across multiple categories. So we didn't want to do this only among, one category. And then three, we also wanted to make sure we utilize a sufficient number of article context in order to reduce bias. So how do we do it? Ultimately, we developed a research study that was conducted in the US among 1,200 respondents, age 18 plus. And each respondent was actually, we identified their interest in select categories. That included automotive, food and beverage, entertainment, and sustainability. And these categories were chosen for a few reasons. One, they were all relatively popular. They all have quite a bit of ad spend behind them, and they're all very distinct from one another. And so each respondent was basically placed into a group based on their category interest. And then within that category, they were randomly placed into one of three cells that you can actually see on the screen right now. So in one group, the control wasn't actually served, any content that was contextually served. We had one group that was served content based on the IAB categorizations, and then a separate group that was served ads based on custom AI. So every respondent actually went through a series of clutter websites. So they saw 6 in total. And on one of those 6 sites, they were served an article that included an ad from their category. So if they were in the automotive category, they would have seen an automotive ad, et cetera. And then the 5 other websites had different category context that wasn't related to it. And so when we did that in total, we ended up having like about 40 different context scenarios. So it wasn't like we only tested one scenario for each category. We had multiple categories in order to make sure it was really robust. So even though this was a kind of a controlled environment, the design was such that we replicated exposure of the contextual placement, and the consumer behavior as best we could.
Very interesting what you explained just now, because that's exactly what we were aiming for, that like no matter what the article content is, in the end, what we were testing is that the article extraction tool provides what we wanted to test, the hypotheses we had here at Seedtag, and it was like proving what we can do with this new article extraction tool. So now back to you, Rick, because I want you to now take the floor, tell us a little bit about what you saw in the upper funnel metrics and how this new technology boosts those performance for campaigns.
Yeah. And to set the context too, before, you can see the numbers here, but the results that I kind of mentioned previously about that 10% uplift. So again, that was people who were exposed to the custom AI placements, they felt it had a stronger connection with the content, the brand. And what that resulted in was stronger upper funnel metrics for the brand advertised. So here what you're seeing is the comparison in lift between custom AI versus standard IAB. So ads that were served via custom AI had 22% greater lift in recall. So the memorability that we were talking about earlier. In addition, message association. So that's the ability of people to remember and link the message that was advertised with the brand. So what this is telling us is that, the custom AI placements really position the campaigns in a much stronger place to be memorable. So, regardless of the strength of the creative itself, the placement and the ability for custom AI to put ads in a really strong, relevant context has the ability to increase the performance of the campaign.
Thank you for that, Rick. Super interesting. I don't know, Pablo, if you would like to jump in here and tell us a little bit about like how you see these findings in terms of what it means for clients and how we have upgraded what we can offer clients with this new development.
Yeah, no, of course. As an ending note, right? I think that we see that the digital ecosystem is changing. There's new challenges. With new challenges, we see new opportunities. And, as Rick was presenting, these opportunities come with improvements in what we used to do. It will allow us to keep on improving, the message association, the receptivity, the ad recall, and so on, different upper funnel metrics, as we keep on investing on innovation and on new ways of doing digital advertising, new ways that are beneficial for our agencies and advertisers, as we see in the slide that it's on the screen right now, but also beneficial for users and for consumers, which of course are always in our minds when we develop new technologies, right? As we need to respect their privacy, and as we were saying at the beginning, at the end of the day, make a very open web, free open web, so that everyone can benefit from it from all the sites, right? Advertisers, users, and also, of course, our publishers. So yeah, thank you very much, Rick, for joining Seedtag in this. It was an amazing experience to work with MetrixLab. Again, I think we work very closely together.
Thank you both for joining me today and for the points you have shared. I think it's been super interesting, specifically seeing like the whole development and evolution that Seedtag's technology has gone through over the last couple of years and what we're able to do now for clients. And just leaving you some food for thought here today. Getting consumers to look at your advertisement and pay attention to it has never been more a challenge than it is today, because the media environment is getting complex. There's other regulations that are taking place that are also controlling the way users are consuming media. Users are becoming more aware and concerned about their privacy, and this is also blocking the way we can reach them. But Seedtag has always the client in mind and wants to help them find their objectives and succeed at like achieving them in the best way possible, and always being respectful of that user privacy. So I hope that you are eager to test custom AI with us and see what we can do to help you achieve those campaign objectives. Now that the discussion is done, I want to leave a little bit of minutes to address the audience questions, if there are any. Do we have questions in the chat box? There's a question. Do you crawl catalog the entire web? Where do these websites with their articles come from? Do you know them? How do you know them?
Okay, let me read that again. I think that's for me. I will read the three as they come from the same people. How do you measure that customers are actually more interested by contextual ads? Can we work with you directly? Do we not through agencies? Okay, so let me take one step at a time. So the first question that comes from Jos Kapelken, if I'm hopefully pronouncing that more or less as it is. The question is, do you call the entire web? Where do these websites with their articles come from, and how do we know them? So we are connected through different publishers, high premium publishers, through header bidding, pre-bid, or tag technologies. So we are not contextualizing the entire web per se, but we are connected in most of the countries where we have footprint to between 85 to 98% of the open web, I would say. So here in Spain, where we have been working the longest, I would say we're connecting to around 95% of the traffic, 98. In other countries where it's a bit more recent, that numbers, of course, is not so high, but we keep on increasing it at very high rates, because we know that premium publishers' connections is what will ultimately also drive high performing campaigns.
How do you measure that customers are more interested by contextual ads? Do you interview them? So there's two things here. There's the affinity index that was developed in a way that when you input into the custom AI tool, the client's briefing, we find articles that find high affinity with that client briefing based on keywords, based on a semantic analysis of our holistic understanding of the network. But with MetrixLab, what we have done in this case was also take that one step further. And there's two key questions that we ask the users. We ask them if they found the article and the advertising have a high fit. So if they think whenever they were impacted, the article is relevant and fits that moment of impact. And then we also ask them the action intent. By the action intent, we can definitely also measure interest in the user and how much more engaged they are when impacted contextually. So yes, this comes from a survey that is post-impact. And can we work with you directly, or do we need to go to agencies? We can work both ways.
Both.
We can work with clients directly or with an agency deal. So this is flexible.
You can contact us through the web directly, or to any of us. I don't know if our emails are there, but we will gladly share the emails. and we will derive you to the relevant salesperson that will definitely help you. So, okay, next question. Are the ad units themselves standard IIB size or are they custom? So we work with different placements and hence different sizes. Seedtag was born as an image company, so we were the first ones to use the images of articles to place ads upon them. So we had this very high impact placement. Then we started to develop new placements, all of them in content, right? So we have the in image, in article, in screen, and in video now. So some of them would be, for instance, the in screen would have IIB specific sizes, other not, but we can always adapt from our creative team here at Seedtag. We can always adapt anything that you would need for your campaign. Shouldn't be a problem.
Another one for you, Pablo, man of the hour. In which languages is custom AI available? Only English?
No. So Liz is trained in each and every language from the countries we operate in, right? So and it's actually trained for each specific language. You would see other contextual vendors that use translation systems and then translate that into English, which is normally the training language. In our case, we train Liz in each and every language. So Liz speaks Spanish, Liz speaks French, Liz speaks English, Dutch, Italian, German, Portuguese, and I'm probably forgetting some, but basically speaks the big amount of languages.
More languages to come for sure.
Yeah,
we can keep training Liz.
yeah. We do. We still develop new languages as we need them, right?
I think that was it in terms of questions. Thank you, everyone that dialed in today. I think it was an interesting conversation. Really, thank you so much, Rick, for joining us. And I think it was like the methodology you shared. I think it was a brilliant approach and really helped us before our go-to-market with these new technology development to set a standard in how we wanted to test and bring results that were accurate enough and that we can trust. And then, Pablo, I just hope that our audience here today really got excited and engaged with all the clear examples that you shared, and that even like live show of going through Liz and showing us how the custom AI tool works, which was amazing. So thank you so much.
Thank you.
Thank you, Mercedes.
Thank you, Rick.
Thanks, everyone.